Of course he knew, no man better, that he hadn't a ghost of a chance. He hadn't an earthly. The very idea of such a thing was preposterous. In fact, nothing short of desperation, nothing short of the fact that this was positively his last day in England for God knows how long, would have screwed him up to it. And even now. He chose a tie out of the chest of drawers, a blue and cream check tie, and sat on the side of his bed. Supposing she replied, "What impertinence!" Would he be surprised? Not in the least, he decided, turning up his soft collar and turning it down over the tie. Making between 500 and 600 a year on a fruit farm in, of all places, Rhodesia, no capital, not a penny coming to him, no chance of his income increasing for at least 4 years. As for looks and all that sort of thing, he was completely out of the running. Reggie turned away, took out his cigarette case, but remembering how the mater hated him to smoke in his bedroom, put it back again and drifted over to the chest of drawers. No, he was dashed if he could think of one blessed thing in his favour, while she... He stopped dead, folded his arms, and leaned hard against the chest of drawers. And in spite of her position, her father's wealth, the fact that she was an only child and far and away the most popular girl in the neighbourhood, he fully believed, had it been necessary, she would have been a genius at anything, in spite of every single thing you could think of. So terrific was his love that he couldn't help hoping. How he loved her! He squeezed hard against the chest of drawers and murmured to it, "I love her, I love her." And just for the moment, he was with her on the way to Umtali. It was night. She sat in a corner asleep. Her soft chin was tucked into her soft collar, her gold-brown lashes lay on her cheeks. He doted on her delicate little nose, her perfect lips, her ear like a baby's and the gold-brown curl that half covered it. They were passing through the jungle. It was warm and dark and far away. Then she woke up and said, "Have I been asleep?" And he answered, "Yes. Are you all right? Here, let me..." And he leaned forward to... He bent over her. This was such bliss that he could dream no further. But it gave him the courage to bound downstairs, to snatch his straw hat from the hall, and to say as he closed the front door, "Well, I can only try my luck, that's all." But his luck gave him a nasty jar, to say the least, almost immediately. Promenading up and down the garden path with Chinny and Biddy, the ancient peaks, was the mater. Now, of course, Reginald was fond of the mater and all that. She meant well, she had no end of grit and so on, but there was no denying it, she was rather a grim parent. And what made it rougher than ever was that she was positively all that he had. So whenever Reggie was homesick out there, sitting in his dark veranda by starlight while the gramophone cried, "Dear, what is life but love?" his only vision was of the mater, tall and stout, rustling down the garden path with Chinny and Biddy at her heels. The mater, with her scissors outspread to snap the head off a dead something or other, stopped at the sight of Reggie. "You're not going out, Reginald?" she asked, seeing that he was. "I'll be back for tea, mater," said Reggie weakly, plunging his hands deep into his jacket pockets. Snip, off came a head. Reggie almost jumped. "I should have thought you could have spared your mother your last afternoon," said she. Silence. The peaks stared. They understood every word of the mater's. Snip went the scissors again. Poor little beggars, they were getting it. "And where are you going, if your mother may ask?" asked the mater. It was over at last, but Reggie did not slow down until he was out of the sight of the house and halfway to Colonel Proctor's. But wait a bit. This was too quick altogether. He'd meant to think the whole thing out again. Here, steady. But he was walking up the path with the huge rose bushes on either side. It can't be done like this. But his hand had grasped the bell, given it a pull, and started it pealing wildly as if he'd come to say the house was on fire. The housemaid must have been in the hall too, for the front door flashed open and Reggie was shut in the empty drawing-room before that confounded bell had stopped ringing. Strangely enough, when it did, the big room, shadowy, with someone's parasol lying on top of the grand piano, bucked him up, or rather excited him. It was so quiet, and yet in one moment the door would open and his fate be decided. The feeling was not unlike that of being at the dentist's. He was almost reckless. But at the same time, to his immense surprise, Reggie heard himself saying, "Lord, thou knowest, thou hast not done much for me." That pulled him up. That made him realize how dead serious it was. Too late. The door handle turned. Anne came in, crossed the shadowy space between them, gave him her hand and said in her small, soft voice, "I'm so sorry Father is out, and Mother is having a day in town hat hunting. There's only me to entertain you, Reggie." Reggie gasped, pressed his hat to his jacket buttons and stammered out, "As a matter of fact, I've only come to say goodbye." "Oh," cried Anne softly. She stepped back from him and her grey eyes danced. "What a very short visit." Then, watching him, her chin tilted, she laughed outright, a long, soft peal, and walked away from him over to the piano and leaned against it, playing with the tassel of the parasol. "I'm so sorry," she said, "to be laughing like this. I don't know why I do. It's just a bad habit." But the truth was, and they both knew it, she wasn't always laughing. It wasn't really a habit. Only ever since the day they'd met, ever since that very first moment, for some strange reason that Reggie wished to God he understood, Anne had laughed at him. Another queer thing about it was, Reggie had an idea she didn't herself know why she laughed. He'd seen her turn away, frown, suck in her cheeks, press her hands together, but it was no use. The long, soft peal sounded, even while she cried, "I don't know why I'm laughing." Now she tucked the handkerchief away. "It is tomorrow that you're going, isn't it?" "Yes, tomorrow as ever is," said Reggie. Why on earth was he so nervous? Nervous wasn't the word for it. It's frightfully hard to believe," he added. "Yes, isn't it?" said Anne softly. "It's ghastly, this idea of going back," he said. "Coo, coo, coo, coo," sounded from the quiet, and Anne murmured, "You mean it's lonely?" "Oh, it isn't the loneliness I care about," said Reginald. "I could stand any amount of it, used to like it even. It's the idea of—" Suddenly, to his horror, he felt himself blushing. "Rook-coo-coo, rook-coo-coo." Anne jumped up. "Come and say goodbye to my doves," she said. "They've been moved to the side veranda. You do like doves, don't you, Reggie?" "Awfully," said Reggie, so fervently that as he opened the French window for her and stood to one side, Anne ran forward and laughed at the doves instead. To and fro over the fine red sand on the floor of the dove house walked the two doves. One was always in front of the other. One ran forward, uttering a little cry, and the other followed solemnly, bowing and bowing. "You see," explained Anne, "the one in front, she's Mrs. Dove. She looks at Mr. Dove and gives that little laugh and runs forward, and he follows her, bowing and bowing, and that makes her laugh again. Away she runs, and after her," cried Anne as she sat back on her heels, "comes poor Mr. Dove, bowing and bowing, and that's their whole life. They never do anything else, you know." Reggie gave no sign of having seen the doves or of having heard a word. For the moment he was conscious only of the immense effort it took to tear his secret out of himself and offer it to Anne. "Anne, do you think you could ever care for me?" It was done. It was over. And in the little pause that followed, Reginald saw the garden door open to the light, the blue quivering sky, the flutter of leaves on the veranda poles, and Anne turning over the grains of maize in her palm with one finger. Then slowly she shut her hand, and the new world faded as she murmured slowly, "No, never in that way." "It isn't that I'm not awfully fond of you," she said. "I am, but—" Her eyes widened. "Not in the way—" A quiver passed over her face. "One ought to be fond of—" Her lips parted and she couldn't stop herself. She began laughing. "Oh, please forgive me for being so horrid. Please. You're marvellously unselfish and kind and simple. I'm none of those things. You don't know me. I'm the most awful character," said Anne. "No, please don't interrupt. And besides, that's not the point. The point is," she shook her head, "I couldn't possibly marry a man I laughed at. Surely you see that." "The man I marry," breathed Anne softly. She broke off. And it seemed to Reggie that a tall, handsome, brilliant stranger stepped in front of him and took his place. The kind of man that Anne and he had seen at the theatre, walking onto the stage from nowhere, without a word, catching the heroine in his arms, and after one long, tremendous look, carrying her off to anywhere. Reggie bowed to his vision. "Yes, I see," he said huskily. "Isn't it funny," she said. "I can say anything to you. I've always been able to from the very beginning. But I'm sure it's not what people and what books mean when they talk about love. Do you understand? Oh, if you only knew how horrid I feel. But we'd be like Mr. and Mrs. Dove. That did it. That seemed to Reginald final and so terribly true that he could hardly bear it. "Don't drive it home," he said. And he turned away from Anne and looked across the lawn. But Anne ran after him. "Surely you do see how fatal it would be for us to marry, don't you? I mean, it's all very well for Mr. and Mrs. Dove, but imagine that in real life. Imagine it." "Oh, absolutely," said Reggie, and he started to walk away. "Then why, if you understand, why do you mind so fearfully? Why do you look so awful?" Reggie gulped. "I can't help it," he said. "I've had a blow. If I cut off now, I'll be able to—" "How can you talk of cutting off now? How can you be so cruel? I can't let you go until I know for certain that you are just as happy as you were before you asked me to marry you. Surely you must see that. It's so simple." But it did not seem at all simple to Reginald. It seemed impossibly difficult. "Even if I can't marry you, how can I know that you're all that way away, with only that awful mother to write to, and that you're miserable, and that it's all my fault?" "It's not your fault. Don't think that. It's just fate." Reggie took her hand off his sleeve and kissed it. "Don't pity me, dear little Anne," he said gently. And this time he nearly ran under the pink arches along the garden path. "Roo-coo-coo-coo, roo-coo-coo-coo," sounded from the veranda. "Reggie! Reggie!" from the garden. He stopped. He turned. But when she saw his timid, puzzled look, she gave a little laugh. "Come back, Mr. Dove," said Anne. And Reginald came slowly across the lawn.